Hi, welcome to another video in the Electronic Medical Data Management System series. In this video, we will be looking at the Audit Trail Report. Now, an Audit Trail Report is crucial to any multi-user system. It allows us to track activity within the application and also to be proactive in securing the system. So by now you should be comfortable with logging into the system based on previous videos. So we have logged in already as a manager. If you look at the bottom, you'll see that Miss Stevenson is logged in and she's from the manager group. Managers are allowed, based on our configuration, to run our Audit Trail report. So if I were to go to Reports, Audit Trail, this is the Audit Trail template. As you can see, we can run the report based on user, action, or table, or a date range. Now, in any good Audit Trail report, it should answer the four W's. First W is who. Who did the change? Second W, when were the changes made? Third W, where in the system the changes occurred. And the final W, what was actually changed. Now, if I were to click from the template, if I were to click on report by user, it would default to all users. However, we have the ability to filter users by clicking on the drop down. So these are all the users that have access to the system. So we are able to drill down to a particular user. Likewise, action defaults to all actions within the system. We can also drill down. So we could look at where data was added to the system, if a backup was done, if data was imported into the system. We can look at the login data. Now remember, all of these options are dynamic. So as more activity takes place within the system, these options will increase. If you notice, there's no modification option right now because no record was actually modified. But as soon as a record is modified, that information will be captured by our Audit Trail module, and we will be able to report on that. Table, default to all tables, but we can always drill down to a particular table. By date, we can select a date range we want to report on. So this is from the start of the month to present. Now it makes no sense selecting the default options, because if it's not selected, that's a default action. So if we say all users, that's a default action. All tables, that's a default action. So unless we want to filter, then we would select a particular action or a particular user or a particular table. However, to run the report, one of these must be selected. So I could have gone in and just select report by user. So it will report on all users, all tables, all action, all dates. We can also sort the data, sort the report by user, the action, the table, the date, customer, the audit field, that's a field within the table that was modified. We can also sort based on the old value, or we can sort by the new value. And of course, we can sort either ascending or descending. So let's look at all users. And let's leave it at, well, like I said, the data we have is just for today. So let's sort it by table. So this is all the activity for all users sorted by the audit table. So let's check and see if we're answering the 4 W's. The first W, who. So this is the user that did the change. These are the users that did the change. So we have the first W. Second W, when. When were the changes made? So we have a date time field here. So this is answering the when. The other W is where. Where were the changes made? So we have the audit table that was affected. We have the action also that was taken on the audit table. So this is the where, the audit table, and we go further by also identifying the field within the table that was modified. So we have the where covered, and finally the what was changed, what were the changes. So we have the old value and the new value. So that basically takes care of the what. So we can look at the old value, we can look at new values. All right, for the first row, the action was an add. So Mr. Beckford, well, in this case it's Dr. Beckford, because security group tells me he was a doctor. On the 25th at 9:07, a customer was added. No, sorry, a visit was added. And this is the name of the customer that was added for the visit. Now, you notice we have a hyperlink here. Now, the table comes up, or I should say the report comes up with all the rows compressed. So if it is I'm adding a visit, there's based on the previous video, we have some properties that we have to add for the customer. So the height, the weight, the temperature, basically the vital signs. So in order for the report to be correctly formatted, or not to be all over the place, we're minimizing screen real estate. We basically compress whenever there are multiple changes within a particular table. So in this particular case where we added a visit, multiple changes were made to the visit table. So if I were to click on the audit field, it basically shows me everything that was entered, bearing in mind that this is an addition, so there would not be any old value. So in this case, the old value doesn't apply. So I'm looking at all the new values that were added to the data table. If I were to click again on the hyperlink, I would compress the row again. So it's the same thing for the second row, where another visit was done. So likewise, we have a hyperlink. We can click on the hyperlink to see the detail. So the report comes out in a summary format, but we have the ability to drill down. All right, let's look at the user table, because I want to show you something where the login is is concerned. But let me get rid of some of this data by filtering the data. So if I were to go back to Audit Trail and I were to click on Report by Table, I want to look at my user table, or I could look at the action. I could say look at my login data, because the user table would also contain information on users that were added, doctors that were added or modified. But the login data would basically just give me information on what took place during the login session. Alright, so if you notice, everything on the action is just login. And of course, it's a user table that is being affected. But this would filter out, like I said before, any addition of new users, new doctors, modification, addition. So it gives me a more refined filter. What I wanted to point out is we have the ability to identify people or people or users who are trying to access the system but are not registered to use the system. So majority of the rows are basically either log out or log in or successful logouts, successful logins. However, we have a few instances of a bad username, so somebody who is not registered on the system basically is trying to access the system. Either that or a registered user forgot the username and password. But we now have the ability to identify such logins, and seeing that we have a date and time, we can always review the security cameras to see which user was trying to log in at this particular time and basically take the corrective actions. So the Audit Trail Report allows us to be proactive in ensuring the security of the system. So somebody might be trying to hack the system, so we have a record, we can see what's happening when they're trying to access the system, and in tandem with our security system, we can basically identify that particular user. We have another case here of a bad password. So it's a legitimate user, but for some reason, they might have made a mistake with the 5 and the S and entering the password. So it's flagged as a bad password, but it's a legitimate user. So we wouldn't be overly concerned, but the ones I want you to look out for is the unknowns. So if I were to go back to my audit report and I were to say, okay, let me look at by user. Now what we did was to flag all attempted access to the system by unknowns or people who are not registered. All of that gets flagged under unknown. So my user is unknown, so if I click submit again, I can see all the attempts by somebody who basically is not registered on the system. So like I said before, in tandem with our security system, we should be able to identify the personnel who was trying to access the system at this particular time and particular date. Let's say we wanted to see what the system administrator was doing on the system, what he has done so far. So this is the system administrator. So this will be for all tables, all action, all dates. We want to filter by date. We basically can put in a date range. So let's say for today, since that's the only data we have anyway. So I can see, okay, it logged in on that particular day. Is there a logout? Yes, there's a logout. So I have a successful login and I have a logout. So that did leave the system. Data is sorted in, I think, well, in descending order. So, and we can basically see what was done. It did some imports, it did a backup. So we can look at the tables that were backed up. We refer to them as collection in our case. So we can look at the collections that were backed up and we say, okay, everything was successful. So we have a good backup here. We can collapse. So we're able to track all our users once they log on to the system. So it makes no sense somebody tell, oh, I didn't touch the system on such and such a day. Is either that distorting the truth or someone have access to their username and password. So we can look and see what the doctor did. So I can say sort by user, we know Dr. Beckford, and we submit and we can see everything that was done. There's a successful login, a logout of accompanying that. It did an intervention. We can look at was the detail of the intervention. So basically, this might be confidential information. So you want to limit who has access to this information. It did added a customer as we saw earlier on. So we can look at the detail of what was added. So we have full access to what's happening in the back end of the system. So we don't have to, be there shoulder surfing. We can always refer back to the Audit Trail Report and see exactly what took place in the system. That's it for the Audit Trail Report. So we'll see you in our next video. Thanks for stopping by.